G'day fellow CarNut. Let's pretend for a second that you're interested in an electric car. You know, you want to do the right thing for the planet and the economy and all that sort of stuff. But you're a bit scared off by some of the things you see waddling around the streets, you know. BMW i3s, Hyundai Ioniqs, maybe Tesla Model 3. They all look a bit unfamiliar and challenging. You could go down this path. This is the mini electric hatch. And to all intents and purposes, it looks like a regular Mini. But does it do the trick? Will it actually satisfy your electric needs? Let's go see. You've got a yellow starter button in this instance, so you hit the button. These chimes and bing bongs and alarms go off that I've been through the settings in the car here and I can't seem to disable those. So that's really annoying because I'd like a car just to start, dashboard light up, but I don't need a little song to play to know that the car's running. The other thing I've noticed in this is that it will not go anywhere unless you have your seatbelt plugged in. So if you need to jump in, move the car down the driveway a little bit to allow another car to come out of the garage or something, you have to plug your seatbelt in, even just to drive 2 or 3 meters, because the car won't function without that. I hate that level of intrusion. One of the first things you'll notice when you jump in the Mini electric hatch is that it's got very strong regenerative braking. You get very quickly used to one pedal driving. So if I'm coming up to a light here, I just take my foot off the throttle pedal and the car slows predictably but quite aggressively. It also pulls up to a complete stop, which I really like. Some cars I've driven, electric cars, they'll slow you right down, of course, under a regenerative braking, but they'll still creep. And I prefer this system here where you pull up and the car just sits there stationary. I reckon you could drive pretty much all day, every day, and not even need a brake pedal. Of course, it's very quiet. There is basically hardly any noise at all. It's a very slight whine that you get from it, which I don't find offensive at all. It sounds kind of high-tech and modern. So it's quite a pleasant, restful environment to travel around in. It is still small enough to be able to chuck it around town. It's what you'd call nippy. Let's take the Mini onto a motorway, eh? So who are we going to take on? I'm taking on a guy in a Mazda CX-9. He's not going to be ready for this thing, I tell you. We're going to waste him. Watch this. Look at that. Go on. Woo! 60, 70, 80, 90. There we go. There's the speed limit. That's pretty smart, isn't it? It just accelerates so nicely. Smooth, effortless, quiet. There's nothing to do. You just have to hang on to the handlebars and steer it. Obviously without any engine noise. You do hear a little bit of extra road noise, a little bit of tyre noise and some wind noise, but it's pretty quiet in here, gotta say, it's pretty quiet. It's just so good to point and squirt and flick around, and yeah, it can be a little bit heavy and it can feel a little bit bulky in some situations. It feels kind of agile like a regular Mini would, although it does weigh 160 kgs more than a regular Mini because of those batteries that it's having to haul around everywhere. So you're not buying this vehicle for the incisive and scalpel-like go-kart handling that that Mini claims to represent. For that, you'd go for a JCW, a John Cooper Works 3-door hatch. And funnily enough, the JCW 3-door costs exactly the same as this does, at $59,900 in New Zealand. But the JCW is a whole different Mini proposition. It's got 170 kilowatts. This has 135 kilowatts. The petrol engine JCW, 320 newton meters. This has 270 newton meters. So it's got more power all around. And of course, it's a lot quicker, the JCW. 0 to 100, about 6.3, 7.3 for this. Top speed, 246 kilometers an hour. Top speed of this, 150 kilometers an hour. If you top up your JCW and you're practicing good driving habits and can kind of get close to what the factory quotes, you should get fairly close to 700 kilometers out of your JCW. Here, you'll be doing really well to get 200, maybe 250. Mini's research tells them that the average Mini does about 37 to 38 Ks a day. So you should be able to get 3, maybe 4, maybe 5 days of running around in the car if you're doing the average without having to go anywhere near a power point. In the boot, of course, it's a tiny boot, as is the back seat, tiny because it's a Mini. But under the boot floor, there's a cavity where you'll find not only your pump for your tyres, because it's not carrying a spare wheel. You'll find a couple of electric cables, one for your fast charging station at your Westfield shopping centre, and one for your very slow charging station behind the fridge in your garage, like me. So as we peel out from a light like that, we can enjoy some pretty brisk acceleration. As I say, 0 to 100 is in 7.3 seconds. That's not lightning quick, but it's quick enough for most people. You can switch off traction control and you can put it in sport mode, and yes, it'll wheel spin off the line. If that lights your tyres up, then you can do that in your Mini electric hatch. You've got a little head-up display that comes out of the dashboard on a separate glass panel. I'd rather that was just a head-up display projected onto the windscreen, because I find these extra glass panels that come out of dashboards kind of like a pretense at a head-up display. It's not really that much higher than the Speedo itself, and it's certainly not on the windscreen where you would think it should be. But I stand to be corrected on that. If someone from Mini or BMW wants to tell me why they use these panels instead of a regular windscreen, then I'm prepared to listen. As it's a Mini, it's got this massive round display in the middle here with in this case, it's got a red light showing there. That light changes color, I've noticed, every time I switch between the mid mode or sport mode, which gives me more urgent throttle response, or step it down to green and green plus mode. These are obviously different economy settings and driver modes. Thing that's annoyed me, it's tiny small thing, but it worries me, frankly. This little rotary dial, well, this sort of circular rocker here on the steering wheel controls the volume and the channel selection of your audio system. But they've got the thing round the wrong way in my mind. I mean, they've got the volume being rocketed left and right, and they've got the channels being up and down, whereas if you have an old radio and you're used to a band, selector or indicator on a radio, you know that it travels from left to right as you go up and down the frequencies, and volume goes up and down that way, doesn't it? So why don't they have the volume control on the top and bottom of this rocker and the channel selection on the left and right? Tiny little things, that really worry me, and I worry about myself worrying about those things. Yeah. Seats are comfortable, driving position's good, steering wheel's pretty good. It's a little bit big maybe, but quite grunty to hold, nice and thick. Yeah, I could really get used to driving this thing. If I could just get a fast charger installed at home and not have to go anywhere near a community-based charging station ever, and if it just had another maybe another 100 Ks of range up its sleeve, then I'd feel more comfortable having it as maybe my only car. It's got that torque, it's got that good urge of acceleration without the hassle of a gear change or a slurring of a torque converter. It's just point, squirt, hang on. The car's fun. It is a fun car to drive, and there is a feel-good factor of knowing that, hey, I just juiced this thing up last night from plugging it into my power point in my garage. Power is hydro generated largely in New Zealand, so I can see why these cars are going to be the mainstay of New Zealand's motoring future. I mean, we've got to drive electric cars. Will I miss the internal combustion engine, the exhaust notes and shifting gears and punching clutches? Of course I'll miss that. But I understand that it's a necessary sacrifice I have to make for the good of the whole planet. I actually quite like this car. In fact, I'm pretty sure I would prefer an electric Mini to a regular automatic Mini. I would still prefer a manual John Cooper Works as my ultimate, I guess. But after that, I reckon this would run a pretty close second. Just finished a long day with the Mini out in the open road, and just wanted to put a bit of a postscript to this video. It's good on the open road. I found it probably a little bit firmly sprung, but I think it's a short wheelbase car. It's kind of got sporting pretensions. It is a Cooper S electric hatch, so I imagine it's not that far off what a regular Mini is like on the open road. And really enjoyed it. I have found that the regenerative braking that I was babbling on about so much and being very strong, you can actually adjust that. There's a little switch down, one of these little confusing rocker switches down here. It does actually control the regenerative braking, so you can back off that regenerative braking and have the car coast a bit more before it slows down. But I've kept it in the most powerful regenerative braking, I guess you'd say, because it feels really good. And again, that one pedal driving, just loving that. Roll on acceleration, fantastic, of course, you know, no worries about shuffling through gears, just pull out and go past somebody, and really satisfying. So as I say, I've really enjoyed this Mini electric hatch.